Hello and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval and I am your host. Thanks for listening today. And we have a unique topic that is ways to support a dad going through divorce. And I wanted to recognize uh, our listener, Chris, who emailed me in about this topic. Chris is going through a divorce, and he has a friend that found and is listening or has been listening to the podcast and turned him onto it. And in return, Chris and I, through the divorce quiz and through the website, got to meet and talk a little bit about what he's going on. But he also asked if there are any other resources for friends or family to assist dads going through divorce. And I thought that was a really fantastic question. So that's why I created this topic for the website or for the podcast today. But before we jump into it, let me just also remind you that the app is out. You can download it at the Apple Store or the Android store. And right now it is 100% free. There are over 50 courses, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, all kinds of different aspects that you may be looking for or needing some support around during your divorce that are 100% free right now. If you go to the divorceddadvocateapp.com, you can download it there, or just go to the website at thedivorceddadvocate.com and click on Get the App. Also, the divorce quiz is still up, and it is an unbelievable tool in order to gauge where you're at in your divorce compared to others who have gone through it. And again, you will also have the opportunity to sit down, get together with me, and review those results to see where you're doing well, where you might need a little bit of help, or where I can get you involved in the community to potentially augment whatever else you've got and whatever else support you have going through your divorce. So on that note, let us talk about ways to support your dad going through divorce. And just want to say before you tune out, dads who are listening, because you think that this might not be a podcast for you, I encourage you to stay listening, because the flip side is that of this is ways in which you can ask people for support. And some of these ways and some of the stuff we're going to discuss today might be things that you haven't thought about, or you wouldn't think about unless you're in the middle of divorce and going through divorce. So some of this stuff, depending on where you're at in your divorce, maybe, whoops.
Hello.
That is my new ringtone for my daughters, and I forgot to turn it off. Anyway, you may not think about where what you may be needing help on or with going through this divorce until you hit it. Or you may be somebody like me that finds it incredibly difficult, or found it, at least for me, incredibly difficult to ask people for help. So stay tuned. Listen into this. Don't tune out. It's just not for friends and family that might be needing to help a dad. It's for you as well to find ways that you can get support, the support that you need, because, hey, we all need this going through divorce. It is an incredibly challenging time, which is not something or news to you that I'm telling you. All right. The first thing you can do to support a dad going through divorce is ask your friend what you can do. We might think we know, especially if we've gone through divorce ourselves, what they might need, but I can tell you all divorces are different. They all have different variables. Everybody is different. The family dynamics are different. Everything is different. So ask your friend what you can, or family member, the divorced dad or divorcing dad that you know, what you can do to help them out through this process. Now, that's not going to be it alone. We're going to talk more about that and about proactive ways, because again, you might run up against somebody like me who's just going to say, oh, thank you, I appreciate that, and never ask. But you'll keep asking too. I guess that would be another point. Ask and then keep asking what you can do to help them. Another one is think before you talk. There are a ton of well-meaning, well-intentioned things that you might feel like is a good one. I told you so is definitely not one of them to say right now. So just, and that's just a funny example, but just kind of just be cognizant, aware that the dad may be going through a ton of different emotions and feelings and is just unsure and uncertain and sensitive to whatever may be said at the time. So just be careful with your words and think about what you're saying. Another one is be a friend. And so the flip side of what you're saying is just be a friend. Sometimes it's best just to be able to listen. And so if you're a male listening and you have a male friend that dad is going through a divorce, we like to fix things, right? We're guys, we want to fix things. Sometimes we just need to listen. And I know that I had the blessing of having a good friend that had gone through divorce during or just prior to my divorce, and being able to just talk to him and have him listen was a really fantastic thing. Now, it probably would have been served me better if he would have just listened and not given me advice. And that goes back to the think before you talk thing, because as much as we need some of that support and we need to have somebody to talk to, friends and family's advice isn't always the best advice. We're a little bit biased, but if you can just listen, be a good friend, and that alone can go in an incredible way in supporting a dad going through divorce. Another one is don't butt in where you don't belong. And this kind of goes along, this kind of goes along the lines of thinking before you talk, and kind of those initial conversations we're having when we learn about a dad that's going through divorce, and we're trying to find ways to help, how to be a good friend, how to basically traverse an uncomfortable and difficult time, because those conversations are not one you've probably had with them before, hopefully, and probably not one you've maybe had a lot of conversations with a lot of people. While we all know people that go through divorce, we may not have intimately known somebody or had a close friend or family member that has gone through it. So having these conversations might be new and uncomfortable. And so if your friend wants to share about what happened or what they're going through, or be specific about it, they will open up and they will share. But until then, don't pry, don't butt in. I call it holding space. Just being there and having a space and an opportunity for them to be able to have the conversation with you, to talk about it and open up to you if and when they're ready. The probability that they will after a certain period of time, if you are a good and close friend, is high, because during this there are so many emotions going on, as you probably know if you're a dad going through a divorce. But and having somebody to talk to just to vent is good, and then being able to tell the story, share the story, and then potentially even ask advice is something that we really do need. So the next one is zip it. Yes, don't give advice, and I just mentioned that. And this, again, as guys, if you're guys listening, that's kind of hard. If we're guys and we've been through divorce, then we may think that we really know what we should be doing. But it's really tempting to start giving advice, start strategizing, trying to help fix, start doing all of that stuff. And if you can just avoid that, just give them the time, hold that space, be there for them. Give them the opportunity to open things out. Use words like have you considered, or what do you think about this? Ask lots of questions that are open-ended that might help them to open up, but don't give advice unless you are asked for advice from them. Another one is when you are given advice or you're having open conversations about this, be 100% honest with them about anything that's going on. So, and this may be something like you're a friend with both them and their future ex-wife. Be open if you've been in communication with that person, because you do not want to have a difficult or create a more difficult, uncomfortable circumstance around their life, because it is already difficult and challenging and uncertain and all of these different emotions that are going on. So be honest about everything. And being honest doesn't just mean being honest when you're asked a question. Being honest is being forthright about anything that might be going on, any information that you might have. If you're in correspondence, like I said, with family members or other family members, or if depending upon your intimacy with the divorced dad and their family, be open, be forthright, be honest about everything. And that also includes being honest with what you may feel if they're asking you for your opinion. But again, wait for that ask. Wait for that ask of advice before giving advice. Wait for giving your opinion about something until they ask your opinion, and be honest about that opinion. Telling them what you think that they want is not necessarily going to be beneficial to them in the long run. You might think it's going to make them feel better at the time. Commiserating with them might make them feel better, but I can guarantee you a close friend that has some important information or an important opinion can really prompt somebody to do some self-reflection and have some self-awareness about a situation that they've been in the clouds about, that they've literally been blinded by or been in the forest, to use a metaphor, and help them to look from a different alternative, a different perspective that you may have, having known them for a while and have intimate knowledge of them and their relationship and their family. So be 100% honest with them, but just do it in a sensitive way. Another one is ditch the judgment. Do not be judgmental. This is not a time to be holier than thou. Even if you may have gone through a divorce, even if you know a lot about divorce, even if you know a lot about them, even if you're a family member and you've known them for their whole life, do not be judgmental. We do not know what they're going through really deep down. We can never know that about somebody else. So just do not be judgmental. The best thing is to be unconditionally loving to them, loving about what decisions, even if you feel like they're making a wrong decision or they're going down the wrong road with the divorce or part of their divorce or how they're parenting, anything, just ditch the judgment. If you can kind of remember the fact that we all go down a road or a path for a certain reason, to learn something about ourselves in order to improve. And if you can think back on your own life, a path that you may have gone down that helped you learn something profound that has changed your life, your friend through this divorce is going through that same path in order to learn something profound about themselves, about their family, and be able to move forward in a manner that is going to be more beneficial to them and their children and their families in the future. So ditch the judgment. You don't know what's right for them. I don't know what's right for them. Nobody knows what's right for you. Just be there unconditionally, holding that space, like I said. Now let's get into some practical ones that you can do. And this is less around the conversations and the mindset and the support and being there mentally and emotionally for them. And this is more about practical kind of what you can do to actually help out. And one of those is to invite them out to do something. This is a time where their whole world, all their environments are completely changing. So the lifestyle that they had is going to be completely different. Being a parent in a house with two parents and a family and the kids, and then being a single dad and going down that route, and then being a single dad and taking care of kids and a house and parenting, and then having that be something different, and then having that in the dynamics of your work being different, your social activities are definitely going to be different. Inviting them out can be a very helpful thing, particularly because as men, what we will likely do oftentimes is isolate. This is different than how women handle this. Women are naturally predisposed to seek community, create community, and they do that. We see that all the time. Even in the family environment, men are less inclined to do that. So inviting them out and helping them to connect with more of community in different communities is incredibly, incredibly helpful. Now, don't get upset or butthurt if they say no. Has nothing to do with you. They just may need time in order to get in the headspace to be able to go out and be social, depending upon the circumstances, the situation, their upbringing, how they handle mental, emotional issues and things that are going on. That is different for everybody. So don't get upset if they say no. Don't get upset if they say no multiple times. And my next point is keep inviting them out. Don't give up. Don't give up on your friend, inviting them out, helping them to create that community, to be involved, to then reassess and reestablish a different type of life will be great. And if you're there to help them do that when they're ready, that's going to be even better. Instead of them having to look somewhere else or find new friends to do that, if you are a good friend or a family member and you're there, it'll be more comfortable. They'll be more inclined to seek that out, to start venturing into those new environments and seeking those new communities if they know you and you're a good friend and they feel comfortable and loved and safe in doing that with you. So keep inviting them out. The next one is don't be a gossip. If you are and have been involved with their family, or you are family and know others who know them or know their kids, or you're in the school community with them, any kind of community, just zip it. Gossiping does not help anything. It's if somebody wants to know something, and if somebody is mature enough to be able to have those conversations, then they should be having those directly with the divorcing dad that they know. So even if, and this happens all the time in families, one family member may be closer, or the one family member may be the one that's in communication with the divorcing dad, and then they're getting the information and then they're spreading it all to the rest of the family, and the rest of the family is looking for that person to be the point person on what's going on. And that is absolutely a recipe for hurt feelings, for misunderstandings, for all kinds of bad communication. So if you have a family member that is asking you for information, I just encourage you to say, hey, why don't you call and have a conversation with the divorcing dad, so that I'm not the one that's in the middle. If they're not mature enough to be able to do that, then maybe they're not mature enough to be involved in this process, because they're not going to be able to provide the love and unconditional love and support and kindness that the divorcing dad needs going through this process. So you can think of this twofold. One, that you're helping your friend, but also you may be protecting your friend from somebody who's not necessarily mature enough to be able to handle this situation in a manner that's going to be beneficial to your friend, and you're gatekeeping from that person doing any further damage, or just not helping your friend or family member through this difficult and challenging time. So that's another one. Do not be a gossip, please. Another practical one, and this is very huge for any divorced person, but a divorcing dad, is babysit, please. This goes back to that changing of environments, and how much that is just drastic and really seismic in our lives, because we're going to 100% when we have our kids during a parenting time as parent, handling everything all of the time. And that's getting the kids ready. That is work, that is homework, that is parenting, that is our self-care, that is everything all the time. And babysitting the kids, even if it is for an hour or two, to just allow them to maybe go to the grocery store by themselves, or to go shopping, or to go exercise, go work out, or just relax and have a little alone time to gather their thoughts and to do some of the self-care that we talk about all the time, can be absolutely life-changing. So babysitting can be a godsend to a divorcing dad. So please, if you have the abilities or wherewithal to do that, even if it is just a short period of time, offer that up to them. Next one is helping around the house. Again, this falls right in line with that. And helping around the house also includes helping them move, because again, if we're isolating, or we have isolated, or we're going through this and everybody's kind of in the lurch as far as whose friends are who and how this is working out, and who's mature enough to be able to talk to you about the circumstances, and which friends are going to stay friends and which ones are not. When we get to when the rubber hits the road, and we're actually executing the separation and needing to move, or needing people to help us move or pack or whatever, that just helps immensely. I know I was so blessed to have a handful of friends that helped me do that. And I absolutely would not have gotten through it, because there were just times where I was packing or unpacking and just taking breaks to break down, literally, not break down boxes, me break down and be upset and cry about what it was that was going on. And I don't think probably I would have gotten through the packing or the unpacking if I did not have friends there to help me through this process. So, and that's just not with the moving and packing, but that can also be, maybe it's their soon-to-be ex has moved out and they need help with rearranging furniture, or they need help in finding new stuff for the house, or they need help in figuring out how to get the cooking utensils and the pots and the pans and the knives and everything else that they need to begin to start preparing meals for the kiddos during their parenting time. It can be something like that. Or it could just be helping do something around the house, build some furniture, or help repair something if they're not so handy, or just cleaning, right? The kids make a mess. Yes, they do. We know it. And helping come over, and even if it is for 15 minutes, a half hour, that cleans the kitchen, that will go just such a long way. It means so much to helping them out. And again, all of these, a lot of what we're talking about today is not stuff that is an immense amount of work. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour, even if it's an hour is an immense amount of time of being able to help somebody. It's just a small commitment that is going to just go so far in helping them. Another one is accept the mood swings. All right, we talk about handling the emotions during the divorce, all the emotions that come up, all the uncertainty, everything that's going on in our mind. As a friend, yes, I know it's so hard to deal with that, particularly if they might be committing to do something and then at the last minute they're not, or you show up and they're breaking down, and it's uncomfortable and difficult and challenging. I was just on a call this week with a guy. He's got a friend going through something, and his friend started crying, and he just didn't know what to do, how to go through that with him. And we talked about it a little bit, but it can be uncomfortable, especially if we're not used to that, or depending on our childhood and how we handle that, or how we were taught to handle that. But accept the mood swings. And again, don't take any of this personally, because it probably 99% probably has absolutely nothing to do with you. It has to do with what we're going through and our inability, frankly, to be able to handle it at the moment, because it's so unbelievably overwhelming. So just try to deal with the mood swings and love them through that. Again, hold that space and be unconditionally loving to them. Now, this next one is one you may never, ever have thought about, but I can 100% tell you that it is man, maybe one of the top three things that you could do to help a divorcing dad, and that is be a court buddy. Court, COURT, buddy. And that's not like helping them court somebody, but that is going to court with them. This process of going to court is probably one of the most disconcerting, just weird things that we ever go through, because we have no idea. Hopefully we haven't gone through this more than once, and we have no idea what it entails. Our attorneys may do a somewhat decent job in explaining what is going to happen, but a lot of them don't. And when they do explain it, they are definitely not explaining or talking about it from a mental, emotional perspective, and all the emotions and all the feelings that we are going to have walking into that court, seeing our wife or soon to be ex, seeing a judge, if you're in a trial, seeing witnesses that you may know, etc. It is unbelievably uncertain, and to have somebody that cares and loves you and that you trust there with you is just an absolute anchor in a rock. So if you can be a court buddy, and if you can do this from the start, if you can say, hey, I would really like to be there for you at any of your appearances that you need to go to, just let me know and I'll put them on the calendar, and I'll plan on being there. And you can know that no matter what, through this process, through this uncertain, difficult process, that I'm going to be there at every court date with you. Man, I didn't have that. And I know walking into court, and this is something I talk with guys about all the time, walking into court, you just have no idea. Getting on the stand, you have no idea. All of this, you just have no idea what's going on or what's going to happen. So be a court buddy. That can be an absolute godsend. The next one is do not support unhealthy behavior. Now, we talked a little bit before about friends giving advice that is potentially not beneficial. So this goes even to the next extreme, which is do not support unhealthy behavior that you notice or identify with your friend. Going out for a drink with them once in a while is great. If you see that they're exceeding what would be something that is beneficial or is helpful to just maybe blowing off some steam or being social or exploring a new environment, talk with them about it. Do not support it. Do not be the one that's out there, let's go out again and continuing unhealthy behavior, because it's destructive. This is a podcast in itself, but it's destructive in the sense that it's not like I said, it's not helping them, but it's also potentially moving them away from the ability to identify what it is that they need to be doing. Do they need to be spending time maybe more in some self-care that's going to help them identify those emotions as opposed and deal with those emotions, as opposed to going out and potentially burying them through some kind of unhealthy behavior or ignoring them through some unhealthy behavior. And if you're supporting that and you're complicit in that, then that is going to be more destructive for them in the long run, and take and postpone what it is that they need to do in order to make those shifts and those changes in the environment, et cetera, that I was talking about. So and you can do it in a loving manner. Again, it can go back to a simple question like, do you really think that's a good idea? That's always a good one. Do you think it's a good idea? And then let them do the self-analysis and self-awareness. But if you got to step away, you got to say, hey, I really don't feel like I can support that, then that's going to be a good friend too. But that doesn't mean abandon them. That might be not supporting something in the moment or behavior in the moment that you are uncomfortable with. That's not just cutting them loose and saying, sorry, when you get it together, come back and let me know. It's just being honest. Again, a lot of this comes down to having uncomfortable conversations like the friend I was talking about this week that I had a conversation with that didn't know what to do when his buddy broke down crying. A lot of this is uncomfortable conversations. And hey, maybe in part of this, you're going to learn how to have some uncomfortable conversations in your life. It might not be a divorcing dad, but it might be some other comfortable conversation that you need to have, or you've been putting off, or just needing to learn that you'll be able to work through and learn from doing that with your divorcing dad friend. The next one is resist the temptation to tear down their ex. This one is seemingly counterintuitive, but it kind of goes back to that first one or the second one that I talked about, which was be careful with your words. Be careful with what you're saying. You might feel like saying something around their ex being a bad person or terrible or whatever it might be is a positive thing, but this person was in love with and built a life with this person because they had affections for them and they cared deeply for them. And just assuming that all went away immediately once they either decided to get a divorce or are going through the divorce is not true. And so there's lots of feelings that get wrapped up in this, and it is not just through the divorce process, but it happens post-divorce too. So just be mindful of saying something that is bad about their ex, because it might hit them in the wrong way. And we don't want to add any more strife or mental emotional anguish to this. So if anything, pray for it and speak kindly of and hope for the best for their soon-to-be ex, because that is only going to benefit them in a co-parenting relationship and benefit their children in this co-parenting relationship. Because the thing to remember is that they are not going to be separate from this person anytime soon, unlike a single friend, or not a single friend, but a friend who does not have children. A divorcing male friend or female friend that does not have children is potentially will be at least physically separated and hopefully mentally, emotionally, after they do the work, separate from this person. But your divorcing dad will not be. There will always be interactions. They're always going to see them at some point at transitions, potentially. And so, being supportive of the soon-to-be ex and hoping, praying, sending well wishes to that person, and I'm talking mentally in your mind and in how you're talking with your divorcing dad, is going to help them through that process, help them to process the feelings that they have about what's happening and about their soon-to-be ex-spouse. This next one might be a little challenging if you're a guy, especially if you know a divorcing dad, but it is get physical. And what do I mean by get physical? I mean, give them a hug. And that's a challenging one sometimes. And I mean, give them a hug, right? Not like the guy's shoulder hug or the guy pat hug. Just, I can't tell you how many times I've said, can I give you a hug? And I've given men hugs and they just break down crying. We're going through a time where we've lost some of that physical touch. And if that's one of your love languages, like it is mine, that physical touch that we have with our spouse and our soon-to-be ex, even our children, because we don't have our children around as much anymore. That's a really, really tough one. And if you grew up in an environment with a family that may not have been very physically loving and touching and nurturing, then that might be difficult as well. So give a hug. You can simply ask, can I give you a hug? And I'm telling you, you're going to be amazed the number of times that the answer is yes, and you're going to be amazed the number of times that the reaction that you're going to get around that, and just don't be surprised if it elicits something like a breakdown of crying, and just, that's okay. That's a good thing. And again, just get comfortable, or try to get comfortable with the discomfort of holding your male friend and hugging your male friend while they might be breaking down, because they need it. And we all need it. We all need that physical touch. We know this from studies of babies and the nature experiments, etc. We all need physical touch. So don't be afraid to give your divorcing dad a hug. Another one is, and this goes back to the practical ones about similar to helping with babysitting and helping with household stuff, is bring food. All right. A lot of us divorcing dads aren't great cooks. Now, I was fortunate to love to be involved in culinary and cooking. And so this wasn't as big of a challenge for me, but a lot of us, especially if we're primary breadwinners, we're not as involved in preparing family meals or thinking about how that works, or nutrition, or what the kids want, or even know what the kids may like in what they want to eat, and how we go about doing that, or how we prep, or all of this is really difficult and challenging. So by you bringing just one meal, that might be something that gets popped into the freezer for an emergency situation where you've either destroyed a meal, like I've done oftentimes, or you just haven't been able to prepare for it and you can pull something out. It helps absolutely a great deal. So bring some food, or even if you can bring some food and spend time with them and their family, that's in creating some community, that's helpful as well. Or bring food and babysit and do a repair at the house, or pack a box at the house. That'll be like the triple crown of you being the most amazing friend. That would be absolutely life-saving. So no, but it doesn't have to be that much effort. It doesn't have to be that time consuming. It doesn't have to be expensive. Again, just these small acts of love, supporting your divorcing dad, will go a long way. And this last one I'm going to share is one that, firstly, one that I did not follow and should have, but also one that is again, helps them to just be cognizant of the process they need to go through mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually in order to go to get through this process, and then change that environment and create that new world, that new life that they want after the divorce. And that is, don't try to rush your friend into dating again. And that's also not to say that dating isn't okay, or that it can't necessarily be a positive or a healing part of it. It's just saying, don't rush them into it. And so I speak from experience in the rushing into the dating, but I also speak from experience in a friend who did suggest this. My friend that I referenced before was somebody that was, oh, you got to go date, you got to do this, this is how you do it, etc. You know, he had many of these that I pulled directly from my experience with him, and I again, I was blessed, and I thank God that he was there for me, because he was literally the only support that I had going through this. So he was a blessing. But I also am cognizant 9 years down the road, looking back and seeing there are also a lot of things that would have benefited me had he followed some other things or done some other things as well. And so that this is definitely one of them, is pushing them into that. There's a process. Everybody's process, again, is different. Like everybody's divorce is different, but just don't push them into that. Don't meddle in their lives. If they come to you, if they think that they want to do something, then be that that opening, having held that space for them to have the conversation with them. Again, the great question is, do you think that that's a good idea? Right? You can talk about them with that, what the positives, the negatives might be, and how that might fit into their life. So those are some ways that you can support a divorcing dad through their divorce. I hope that you found some value in this. Again, if you did, Please share this with a divorcing dad, since you might be listening to this and you are a friend or a family member that knows a dad. Please share this with them. And also go check out some of our other episodes if you know a little bit more about their situation and what's going on. Listen to some of our previous podcast episodes that we have. We go through a ton of different things. We vary it here about what we present to the divorcing dads community, and it runs from self-care to specific practical advice around how to find attorneys or how to parent, to dealing with everything and anything in the divorce process for a dad. So check out some of those previous episodes, share them far and wide, give us a star rating. That really, really helps us, and leave a comment. That really helps us too, to cultivate on the social media that I do little to no cultivating on, which I know I need to change, but that's a whole different story. And thanks for listening. I appreciate it. God bless. Have a fantastic week.